a moment, any other like key moments, some things that we saw differently. You talked a little bit about the timing of the Hive. Certainly we saw Hive come rather quickly, and that did allow him to get those Broodlords up quickly, but it doesn't seem like he had any sort of timing advantage over the Mothership and the Vortex.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think like the Mothership and the Vortex was almost like a formality at that point in time. It was almost like, well, I've already pretty much battered you down to 3 bases, and I'm taking 5, so let me just do an Archon toilet, because that's an extremely effective way to deal with Broodlords.
Incredibly, yeah. So our next map is going to be what?
It looks like it's going to be on ESV Cloud Kingdom. It's a map that's becoming increasingly popular on all the pro gaming circuits in Korea and the American tournaments, even on the ladder itself. I think it was the first time that a community-made map has actually landed successfully in the ladder map pool.
Yep, accurate, and certainly a welcome addition as well. So we're getting started here with Game 2. We're jumped into the game already. And let's introduce our players as we are on Focus Player number 1 challenge for Liquid Sheth. Let's introduce our players.
In the bottom left, we have Liquid Sheth, who everyone knows from his interview is the most mannered person of all time. And in the top right, we have Evil Genius's JYP. Spawning in the top right, a veteran of going air into 3 base, demonstrating those skills. I mean, it's just little tweaks that you see from JYP, like only 1 Colossus before he started to get the Mothership.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that Colossus didn't even do that much damage either. He was handled. I agree a whole lot. So let's take a look. Obviously, we're seeing the early pylon come out at the front. JYP going to go with what he normally does. But I want to talk about this particular map as it relates to third and getting, and as it relates to Zerg and getting that third. Excuse me.
Oh yeah.
Because the third is, it's a good ways away, but it's not a terrible amount. So I mean, is this another situation where it's like, hey, if you get blocked, go to that third, plan to put down your natural as well? I mean, what are your thoughts on that? I
mean, I actually like the third base positioning for both races on this map quite a bit. It's fairly closed off. I think the real issue with the third is that it's almost uncomfortable when you try to take any fourth base at all. For the early game, Zerg's going to be pretty much cool. He'll almost certainly want this fourth, but it's this wrap around where you can hit the fourth, swing around to this third from the side, or even just walk right down and hit the fourth directly. That's an issue. So if I'm Sheth, I don't want to be too over-eager to just gobble that third up right away, but I'm not upset too horribly if it does end up popping down.
And he will land that hatchery going down after doing the dance with the probe. Of course, JYP, knowing exactly what's going on, has no problem dropping that Nexus. The pool is going to be finishing up pretty soon, but of course there goes the Forge, and soon to be followed by a Gateway. So, as far as the openings, Sheth is staying pretty much on track with what he did in game number 1. And, honestly, his focus challenge wasn't on his openings. It's something that he's always very good at and very meticulous about.
Yeah, Sheth is really, really solid with a lot of his early game execution. And, for people who are a little bit unfamiliar with the really standard, high-level timings in this matchup, right around 7 minutes and 45 seconds is when an early expander can finish his warp gate, warp in, if he's giving it about 4 or 5 chrono boosts. So Zerg's always trying to check, starting around 6 to 6:30, what's going up. Around 6 minutes and 30 seconds is also when the Protoss will have to have committed to some sort of tech choice. And it's those timings afterwards that end up being the huge crisis for that Zerg player. A Protoss will take his third. If he's going for it quickly, it'll happen between 9:30 and 11 minutes. That's when Sheth will be checking a lot at this third base. And oh my goodness, JYP trying to be really, really bold right now. But again, JYP is basically saying, hey, I want to get a fast Stargate. I may as well try to get a really, really, really fast cybernetics core.
Yeah, and although this looks like really, really great, from a Zerg perspective, like, I'm going to get through here. The cannon's not done yet. Well, there you see it right there, the block and the Zealot coming out. In fact, that pylon actually lives with 16 hit points remaining, and so that actually turned out quite well. But JYP, knowing, hey, I'm throwing down this Nexus first, like, this map's a little bit different, it could be risky, fully completes the wall and prevents, any sort of Ling run by.
Oh, yeah, really great timing by JYP. He actually should have lost that pylon, but he excuse me, he guarantees himself a very, very fast cybernetics core at this point in time. We do see that there's the +1 going down. Let's see if JYP does end up plopping down that Stargate. We do see the Warp Gate research coming on in. Looks like at the bottom side, we also see Sheth under a little bit of harassment.
Yeah, and I mean, sending the Zealot over is a good position here on that Zealot. Going to really limit that surface area. In fact, moves him back just a little bit, and we'll clean this up. More Lings are going to have to come out, but that means that, again, he's just having that. Those should be drones, and there he finally gets rid of it. I do like that. For 100 minerals, you know, he got rid of how many Lings there? Like maybe 8 or 9. And, you know, those are now being reinforced. But over on JYP's side, of course, the Stargate is down. And so expecting to see similar opening to what we saw. And this is perfect, considering that that's Sheth's challenge.
It's Sheth's challenge right there, the Stargate popping on up. And, you know, have you ever had that feeling, Marcus, where, you know, you have a crush on a pretty girl, and let's say, for example, you're in 8th grade and you want to talk to her, and when you go up, you're already trying to figure out what you can say next to be all clever? Yeah. And you end up stuttering and embarrassing yourself. That's a lot of times what it feels like when you're trying to practice against a strategy like what JYP is doing. You're focusing so much on, oh my gosh, I got to get ready for the Stargate, and then I got to get ready for my Broodlord and Infester, that you overreact to what's happening right in front of you, the Zealot harass.
Yeah.
And we're seeing JYP do a variation of what he did last game. Look, he's going to be going +1 Zealot, and he's going to be going for 4 Warp Gate along with it. There, Liquid Sheth ends up seeing it, and there's the Void Ray. So now Sheth realizes, I'm up against a 4 Warp Gate +1 aggression. Does he have the roaches up in time? Sheth's really being pushed to the limit right at the start of the game.
Yeah, now, and this is also a situation, and I love these Zerglings in the back hallway here from Sheth moving around, because this is where that pylon will be most deadly. The warp-in of Zealots over here, just to completely nail this third, is going to be nasty, of course, in addition to the Void Ray moving out, who can effectively make these Zealots even more amazing, because there's nothing that they can do about the Void Ray. So are we going to see, yes, we do see another Queen coming out, that third, and he has got to be concerned about it. Is he going to get the pylon down? He really wants to get the pylon down.
He desperately needs that pylon down. It looks like no, he whiffs it. It looks like Sheth really needs to get those roaches forward and in a good position. He has 2 Queens there. He has plenty here to be able to defend this attack as long as he micros very, very well. JYP starting to move forward, and Sheth may have actually gotten himself to be a little bit overly eagerly positioned and might end up just foiling right here in the midst of this push.
Oh, yeah, the Spine Crawler goes down, and that means the Spore Crawler is going to be completely vulnerable. The drones have to get into the battle as well, as we see several low-health Zealots, but more importantly, this third is about ready to go, and he really can't fight the Void Rays with his Queens with all of these Zealots here, but so many drones have been lost at this point, 9, and there goes the third. And this is certainly going to be some good practice for Sheth, as you can see why he has chosen this for his challenge.
Yeah, it's so easy to just put your brain past what's happening in front of you and start thinking too far into the game, and that's exactly the mistake that Sheth made this game. Thinking a little bit too far ahead, had a lot of conversation in between in that game, and now I see that this push might very well just end this game right here.
Yeah, in come the Void Rays. Of course, the Queen's a bit out of position. Spore Crawler trying to make its way over with just a single Queen. Fully charged Void Ray just targeting down that pool. Thankfully, the Roach Warren is pretty far away, but they don't even have to worry about the sweet tickles of that Queen, because the pool does go down, and even with the Spore Crawler there and a second one, these Void Rays just continue to wreak havoc.
Looks like JYP getting pushed back by this wall, but does Sheth have what he needs to step into the next stages of gameplay? He is getting the Hydralisk Den down. It's kind of hard to tell what is Sheth's overall goal going to be at this point, as he's in such an atrocious position. But at the same time, Sheth may have messed up the opening, but he's still going to try to play this game out.
Yeah, and you know, you had mentioned the third and how you kind of like it. This would be that one case where the Zerg really doesn't like it. The Void Rays, they finish up with the third, and they're like, hey, I'm fully charged. I'm going right into the main. And you can just see the amount of damage that was done, both extractors going down and the pool. And then what do? They just move on over and start working on that third again. So, I mean, this has truly been a great air opening here from JYP, especially as he combined it with the Zealots and made just a super nasty force that Sheth is now just, I mean, I don't know what he does at this point. You can see here the thought is that, well, I need to counterattack. And then I guess he decides against it and comes back.
Looks like the Hydrals are popping out. I'm really impressed with the fact that Sheth is not giving up because he's trying to practice against this basic opening. He'll have a full long-term game plan set out in front of him, but this is going to happen sometimes when he's in a tournament. He may as well actually play it all the way out. This is a very bad situation, but not completely unwinnable. And it's very easy to label that as such. And now the Hydros are coming out. Some nice kiting by JYP. Would be almost a game-ending blow to lose this hatch. And it looks like he does end up losing it. And we'll have to rebuild a second time.
Yeah, that's unfortunate also that one Void Ray goes down. The second one just manages to sneak away with just a little bit of its life remaining. There's actually quite a few idle drones here in the natural as well. They all seem to be following one guy. That's the leader drone right there that he is following. But, I mean, now he's going to throw down another hatchery, and it seems like the threat's been taken care of. But I guess the question would be is that you've got to prepare for what's coming next. He's got a Colossus out. He's got a couple of Mortals. I mean, at this point, you look at the ground army, the units of Sheth, and yeah, the Hydralisks have come out, but there's only 5 of them, 15 Roaches and 23 Lings. I mean, it seems really, really tough for Sheth right now.
And this is exactly, I'm so glad. I mean, this really goes to show how JYP has been such a valuable practice partner for Evil Geniuses. I mean, literally, he had a game-winning position in the early game, and what did he do? He just took the 3rd, because that's what he's supposed to be doing. That's what Sheth wanted him to practice for. He's taking the 4th. He's going for the death ball exactly as he was instructed to do. So now Sheth gets to feel the exact same situation he was in the last game, only on his side, he suddenly doesn't have the hive tech to rely on. He's just in a layer position. So in this spot, Zerg has to get up a lot of spines, has to rely a lot on infestors, and basically hope that Puma doesn't, or excuse me, the JYP doesn't hit him too soon.
And he's also going to be in this position here where he's starting to put the spines up at the natural, but he's going to have to deal with also the 3rd as well. And you know, fighting into this ramp, especially versus Colossus, as any good Protoss player is going to have them well behind. You know, without the Corruptors to deal with that, what exactly are you going to do? We are seeing that hive tech come out, but more importantly, does Sheth know that this army is right on his front doorstep? And yes, he does with the 1 Ling at the watchtower. So here comes the rest of the army. Is he going to try to poke in? No, it looks like JYP not really committing at this point.
It looks like JYP has built a Warp Prism and is researching Warp Prism speed, so that way he can dart around and do a whole bunch of harassment, essentially trying to help himself guarantee the win. And right now, Sheth is going to have to do some defensive miracle work with those fungal growths. He will have to sacrifice this 4th. +3 is coming for JYP, and just as we saw Sheth mention in practice, he's been very, very responsible about his upgrade, managing to keep pace with JYP.
And that's really impressive considering just how much he was under fire early on. But that +3 looking kind of nasty. Now, interestingly enough, JYP moves away at just the sight of the single spine crawler because we've got a counterattack up here at the front. And there's not really a whole lot to deal with this right now. Roaches are moving in. And I'll tell you what, it would be really great for him to try to equalize things in terms of bases. But this army did rotate fairly quickly. And now he's just trying to get in through that front door. And again, similar to last game, where we had that early roach push that didn't really do too much. The same thing. I mean, the damage of those roaches was really, really minimal.
And we're seeing pretty much the same moves from last game. It's just like you said, that was the same counterattack that we saw, kind of got sacrificed, and it was there to help buy time for the Broodlords. We're seeing again Sheth in a similar position, except instead of Broodlords, it's Infestors, and this may serve as a valuable lesson. Maybe the Infestors will end up being a little more effective than the Broodlords. Maybe I should value the Infestors more than the Broodlords for staying alive.
And the Infestors do work really good in these ramp situations, especially where you've got all these spine crawlers. Of course, we still have the Colossus in the back there, up to 3 now. Yeah, I mean, the blink in. The Infestors now under fire. They get focused down one by one. The Corruptors not even getting involved with this battle. And this 3rd is going to go down. Now, meanwhile, of course, we've got all this attack happening, but I feel like it's just too late. We do have the Roaches inside, but a simple warp in, and I think that this is going to be taken care of.
Yeah, this is so close to what Sheth wants to do. These counterattacks try to keep the Protoss pinned down on bases, but right now JYP managed to get max. There's the snipe, and there's the good game. Sheth is 0-2 in his challenge. But you always have to keep in mind, this is not Sheth trying to win all the games and have the prize at the end and the trophy in his hands.
Right.
He's actually said, this is probably what I'm worst at, and I want to get better.
No, I think that's a great point. And let's like compare game 1 and game 2. Game 1 on Daybreak, I feel like he handled the air, and one thing that was different is that he had those spores down. You had commented that, there's kind of an overreaction. Of course, in this particular map, there was only the Void Ray. There was no follow-up with the Phoenixes at all. But so that was definitely one thing that I saw a difference. We still had the Roach attack, but I feel like in game 2, it was more like, well, I have to do this at this point. Both games, and tell me what you think about this, but both games, it seems like if those spine crawlers got up a little bit earlier, it would have made his defense better, and it could have possibly repelled some of those attacks from JYP.
Yeah, I feel like in game number 1 especially, the spine crawlers, there was literally a period where there was 2,000 in Sheth's bank, and Sheth didn't make the spine crawlers. His focus was all on the counterattack. If in that period all the spines went down, the Broodlords would have had those critical 30 to 60 seconds that they needed. But my gut almost tells me I don't want to rely on that as much. Because there's having a game like game 1 where, it looked like that would have worked in that specific game. And then there's, does it work in all the possible situations you could be in? There was actually that moment where the counterattack of Roaches happened. We even talked about, wow, Sheth got really lucky in that very moment.
Right. And you know what? You actually did make a good point about game 1 where the Roaches, although they might not have done a ton of damage, if he would have pulled, and he did pull back the army, JYP pulled back his whole army, if that would have been the opportunity to put all those spines down and have it ready to rock and roll, that could have been perfect. But, game 1, game 2 are down, and so now he's got to reflect on sort of what he's seen and see what he can do in our next game. So what do we have next?
Well, coming up, Sheth is going to continue his challenge. He's going to be up against Hasu Obs. Again, to try to get a little bit of variety of player. We already saw Puma start throwing, or JYP start throwing some of that variety out at Sheth as well. So we're going to be stepping to a brief break, but we'll be back within 3 minutes to continue with Liquid Sheth's challenge. I'm Day 9.
And I'm DJ Wheat. Don't go away. We got a lot more coming at you from Day 1 of Red Bull LAN Orlando.